Hello, everybody. It's my great pleasure today to introduce to you the great Martyn Ford. Hello, Martyn.
Hi, Helmut. Great. Is that
Ma-
GRATE?
Massive. Yes. How are you today?
I'm very good, thanks. We're looking forward to chatting to you as always.
Yeah, great. So, for all the people who don't know Martyn is a conductor, producer, arranger, a writer. He's worked with, I'm going to have to read this off because it's crazy, with the biggest names in the music industry: the Rolling Stones, Elton John, Paul McCartney, Phil Collins, Brian Ferry, Cliff Richard, The Who, Led Zeppelin, Mac Bolan, Bob Marley, Kate Bush, Led Zeppelin, Toto, Harry Nilsson, Grateful Dead, Johnny Cash, Barkley, James Harvest, and the list goes on and on and on. So he is an absolute legend in my book. And we're speaking today about the Bible album, which you have produced, arranged, co-produced. You tell us about it, please.
Yeah, I co-produced it. I arranged about a third of it. I co-produced all of it, and I conducted most of the orchestral stuff as well. There's 30 tracks. So when we were approached to do it, there was no way I could arrange 30 tracks. And then anyway, I was co-producing it with Paul Buckmaster. So Paul would obviously, as arguably the greatest arranger there's ever been, he would obviously do some of the tracks. So we decided to split it into 30 tracks, divides easily into three. So I did 10, Paul did 10. And then
Okay.
we got hold of Nick Harrison, who was another very successful arranger at the time. He'd just done Angie by the Rolling Stones, which I conducted. And so
Really?
Nick
Wow.
was sort of a hot arranger at the time, as was Paul and I. So he was an obvious choice. He was also managed, I think, by Paul's manager as well. So that just made it tidy.
And you brought in all these amazing studio musicians for the production. How did that work?
Well, because as well as being a producer and arranger conductor in London at the time, I was also probably the biggest session fixer in London for 30 years. So I fixed sessions obviously for myself, but the phone was going all the time. I fixed rhythm sections, brass sections, orchestras, 20 banjos, whatever it was, for all sorts of clients. People came over from America to use my orchestra. People would ring up wanting a rhythm section, which I wouldn't necessarily be involved with, but
You put it together.
might be. I worked for Aerodel, who are a big jingle making company. So I fixed all their jingles, advertising jingles for the cinema and radio and TV. So it was obvious that I would fix all the musicians for the album. I knew who the best players were in London at the time.
Amazing. And so the guys who wrote the actual Bible album, they were French. Is that correct? They were a bunch of French people. Did
Well, they were living in France at the time,
okay.
and some of them were French, but in fact, I think the majority of them were American. So
Okay.
there were a bunch of kids who'd got together in France, and were really street busking. They were going around the streets playing these amazing songs. And it just so happens that this French guy, Andre Jowie, he heard them playing and got really sort of interested in what they were doing, and managed to sort of persuade them that they should record this stuff. So they had probably, I don't know offhand, but they probably had 200 or 300 songs. So honing it down to 30 songs was difficult. But Andre
Mm.
Jowie, I don't know how I got the job in a way. I can't actually remember, but I do remember that we met up in a hotel or record offices somewhere. I think he had contacted an English record company, probably CBS International, where I had a very good relationship with the A&R man there, Hugh Atwell, who used to throw a lot of work my way coming in from overseas. And he said, they particularly wanted to use Paul because Paul was the best there was. And they also knew about me as well. So we had a meeting with maybe 4 or 5 members of the group with this guy, Andre Jowie, and talked about the project. And Paul and I agreed to co-produce it. And the money came from somewhere. I think he had a deal with Polydor or something like, oh, I can't remember. And so after a lot of soul searching, really, choosing the best 30 tracks. We went into the studio. We did it at Trident Studios, which was no longer with us, but was a legendary recording studio.
Studio, yeah. And this is 1971, is that right?
You probably know better than I. I think it was a bit later than that. 1977.
Oh, 1977. Okay.
I'm just looking at the album now.
And so that was released then as a double album, yeah?
It was released as a double album on vinyl only. This was pre-CD days.
Pre-CD, pre-digital, pre-anything like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. It was recorded on a 2-inch 24-track tape at Trident. And
Okay.
it took 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, when you introduced this project to me and asked me if I wanted to get involved to get that out through Wolf Entertainment, I listened to it and I was like, wow. I was really blown away by the production, by the player, Simon Phillips, who's one of my all-time greatest heroes.
Me too.
It's actually funny in the 70s. He was still young guy, me too. And I had a friend in Koblenz. He had a drum shop, music shop, and they did a drummer festival. And they had Simon Phillips, Bill Bruford, not Ginger Baker. Anyway, some of the top drummers in the world. And that's when the only time I actually met Simon Phillips. And I was doing a video of him doing solo and just like next to him on the drums. Incredible player. Incredible.
Yeah, for me, he's the greatest drummer in the world. So it was very lucky for me that he was still in London in 77. This is before he moved to LA. I'd been doing quite a lot of work with him for several years. I first met him, I was playing in the pit of the original production of Jesus Christ Superstar. And Simon was playing drums, age 16. He was just a prodigy, and is still the best drummer in the world. I saw him only a couple of weeks ago. He came back to London, and he's just the best. And he's such a lovely guy, and so easy to work with. So to have him on the album, as well as 2 or 3 other great drummers, we had Barry D'Souza, who's no longer with us, I'm afraid, but. We just had the best of English session musicians. We had Ray Russell and Hugh Burns on guitar. We had Ann O'Dell and Tony Hymas on keys. Also Francis Monkman, who's no longer with us. He was Curved Air. Great bass guitarists. We had Paul Westwood and Dave Marquis and Alan Jones. And the drums, as I said, Simon Phillips and Barry D'Souza. We had Ray Cooper on percussion. Goodness me, Ray Cooper's been touring the world with Elton for 40 years or something mad. Maurice Pert was on percussion. He's no longer with us. It's very sad going through the list of musos and really realizing that half a dozen of them are no longer with us. But it was just the who's who of London session musicians playing on it, which is why it sounds rather good, Helmut.
It sounds incredible. And now it's been remastered. So I guess they took the old masters and then remastered them digitally, so it sounds
very, very luckily I had quarter-inch copy masters, which I carried around with me for years.
Okay.
And I got them digitized here in Bristol, nearby, a very good company who digitize from tapes. They managed to save the tapes. They weren't in great shape, but they were in good enough shape. And then we sent them off to a colleague who played in the band, and one of the keyboard players, one of the singers, one of the main writers, called John Gregory, who lives in Japan, but is now an extremely an accomplished engineer, has his own setup. So he remastered the whole lot. And because he was so involved with the project, because in a way it's his project in a way, because he was one of the band members, he spent a lot of time and a lot of care and attention and love on remastering it, even more than you'd get from a perfectly good remastering sound engineer. But when it's somebody who's actually involved in the project and knows each track intimately, then that obviously is a huge advantage. So that's why they sound so good now.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Okay, so the album has 30 tracks. We released now on the 8th of December, the first one. There will be, what's it called?
It's called There Is Born a Child.
There's Born a Child, which
It's
kind
the
of goes
obvious
with
first single to,
Christmas.
because
Yeah,
it's a Christmas song, as the name implies.
yeah.
It's sung. The lead vocals are by a very famous American singer called JEANE Manson, who lives and works in France. She's a huge star in France. And we recorded this. We also recorded it in French. So when it was released in '77, it actually went to #1 in France in French.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
already had a certain amount of success. It's a very easy listening, very strong, with a terrific chorus, huge orchestration, and a lot of backing vocals, which are the whole band, ELIXIR, and a big orchestration, which I conduct, written by Nick Harrison on this occasion.
Okay. Well, again, see, I grew up with Jesus Christ Superstar, which was obviously, as you know, a big thing back then. And there was another one. Which was that?
Godspell?
Yes, Godspell. So, and then when I heard the Bible album, you sent me 10 tracks to start with, I was like, oh, wow. It was just like on that level, if not better. And
Yeah, well, I'm biased, of course, because
yeah,
6 months of love, sweat, and tears went to this project. I've not wasted, but gave 6 months of my life to this.
mm,
Um, Superstar's obviously great. It's got some great songs in it. Godspell's got okay, but I think overall the material on this double album is, you could take 10 tracks and say these are all better than either of those two shows.
yeah,
They are just outrageously wonderful tracks that
I
cry
totally
out to be
agree.
re-released. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some attention and that people will listen to it. And that obviously it'd be nice to one day get the whole lot released and do a musical or maybe even a movie. It's just the material is so strong that it cries out for special treatment, really.
I totally agree. I started to shop it with the um, publishers, and so far the interest is there. Um, and they were also saying they would like to think of it, put it as a stage production and actually get it on stage live, as well as making a movie. So I think the sky is a bit the limit with this because it is just so wonderful.
Yeah, the material still stands the test of time. You know, the old saying now in the business is all the great songs have already been written.
Hmm.
And I think there's a great deal of truth in this. So the fact that this stuff is quite old now, that there are 2 or 3 tracks on it that I suppose, if I'm honest, perhaps sound a bit dated, but some of the tracks sound just as good today as they did 50 years ago. Well, not quite 45 years ago, whatever it is. They still sound amazing, and with the remastering as well, they just leap out at you. It's just so thrilling to hear them again.
Hmm. So we're looking at releasing a few more singles towards Easter, and then hopefully on Easter we're gonna get the whole thing out. So that's so exciting.
Yes, I think maybe hopefully we can do a sort of little Easter EP with 4 or 5 tracks on, and then try and get the whole lot out later.
Yeah,
Because I think there are 4 tracks that are around the Easter story, the crucifixion and the resurrection. So it'd be quite nice to group those together as a sort of little separate release. I think that would work very well.
that sounds like a great plan. Cool, Martin. Look, at the end of our little conversation, would you like to say anything to your fans, your friends, your family, anything about anything? I always do this at the end.
Well, I don't have fans. I'm one of those guys
No,
that,
it's not true. I'm one of your fans.
all right, I have one
But
fan,
there
thank
you
you, Mark.
go.
Um, I'm one of these guys that people only know about if they read the very small print on albums. I've always been a background boy, but I would urge people to listen to this stuff because it's brilliant. And then download this single because it's a wonderful single, and it's just a taster of another 29 tracks to come, some of which will just blow your mind. They're just amazing musicianship, wonderful songwriting, superb singing. It's a wonderful project that I'm very proud of, and I'm so grateful to you, Helmut, for giving the project a new lease of life, so that it's one of those albums that needs to be heard. You know, it should be out there.
It should be
And
okay.
because of all sorts of reasons, it didn't happen in the first place. And as is always the case when things don't hit off first time, there's usually a reason for it, not necessarily because it's not good enough. There's politics, there's record companies, there's people in A&R, there's people in radio stations, and you've got to have the whole lot working together at the same time. And this instance, it didn't. But I'm hopeful that this time round, we can get some attention to what is an extraordinarily worthwhile project.
Yeah, I'll definitely do my best to work with you and the team to make it known to the world.
Great stuff. Happy Christmas, everybody. Happy Christmas, Helmut.
Thank you so much. Okay, Martyn, happy Christmas to you and your wife, and hopefully we'll speak very soon.
I look forward to that, Helmut. All the best, mate. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.